We wondered how the survivors of the Columbine shooting, those who were injured, and the families of those who were killed, are reacting to Sue Klebold's book. Joining me now, Coni Sanders, whose father, Dave Sanders, was the teacher who was killed that day. And with her, the now retired principal of Columbine High School, Frank DeAngelis, who has been a sort of hub of information and contact for the survivors over the years. Frank, I know not every one of these survivors will read the book, maybe only a few. I know that you have read it. What do you think of the message and the advice for parents that Sue Klebold is offering in the book?
I finished the book last night, and there's some really valuable information about brain illness and brain health, and I think there's some good advice to give to parents, because I think, as she pointed out in her book, she would have never anticipated her son being capable of doing what he did. But after seeing some of the journal entries that he had and some of the things, I think it's a wake-up call for all parents. Just as, for example, for me as a principal, if you would have said that a Columbine could happen in Columbine, my first answer would have been not in our community. And I think it's the same thing that Mrs. Klebold is trying to state. It could happen in any household, no matter how much love and things, and there are signs that she felt she missed. The one area that I was a little concerned, if I had my say, is to eliminate some of the chapters, because I'm also very close with the families who lost their loved ones. You know, Mr. Sanders was a dear friend of mine, and the other 12 children were children of my school, and I worry about how they would be re-traumatized by some of the chapters that were printed in the book.
Yes, it's definitely, you can see that it would be very painful, even though it has been almost 17 years. Coni, you were a young woman at the time. You're still a young woman, but you were 24 with 2 little children when this happened, and it changed your life because you turned and went into being a therapist yourself.
You know, I had wondered from the first moments what happened to those boys, and that was a response that I kept to myself, because it felt shameful to be concerned about what happened to them when, you know, my father was murdered, and, you know, our entire nation was brought to a standstill by this event. And I continued with that curiosity through college, and I now work as a forensic therapist. I work with people convicted of violent crime.
You run a diversion program similar to what Eric and Dylan were ordered into when they were juniors, right?
Yes, I work with the diversion program, providing mental health counseling, anger management for people convicted of low-level crimes, which is what it was considered when they committed the offense breaking into the van.
So is it easy? I'm sure it is not easy, but how do you get past whatever mask these people may be presenting to see that there might be a larger problem?
Part of it is that I respond to them quite differently. They're not criminals when they're sitting across from me. They're people, and they're people who may have made, you know, incredibly poor choices and harmed other people, but at the base of it, that is not who they are. So getting down to, at what point did that road start to harming someone, and really digging into the root of it instead of focusing on the event that happened.
Frank, one thing that Sue Klebold said in the book and in our interview is that she would have been much more observant of Dylan and would have talked to him in a different way had she known. We know that another big point of contact for students is at schools. Do you advocate that parents essentially invade the privacy of their teenagers and monitor them to the point of going into their rooms, possibly reading journals? What's your feeling on that?
Most definitely. Whenever I met with parents when their sons or daughters were coming into Columbine High School, I told them that their kids are going to tell them they're in high school now, they don't need them as much, but their parents need to be parents more so than ever. And I had parents come into my office and say, Frank, I'm really concerned about my child because I feel we're losing them, hanging out with different friends, and they don't want me in the room. And I said, that's a sign to go in there. And I think it's important that safety of others, safety of their own child trumps any type of confidentiality or security. And I think it's our responsibility as parents to go in and find out if these kids are crying out for help. And I think Mrs. Klebold stated that in her book, that she wishes she would have read the journal entries and things. There may not have been a Columbine.
It seems like you would run the risk of pushing someone away more if you're doing that. If insisting on knowing every little secret detail of their life. And we know that adolescents do have some secrets. So how do you know if somebody's depressed, like Dylan was?
I think it's really erring on the side of caution. It's like the young person that comes into my office concerned about a friend, but she said, or he said, I do not want to violate confidentiality. And I said, well, think about, would you rather lose that friendship over confidentiality or lose your friends to death because you didn't report and get that person help? And I think it's the same as parents. They may feel betrayed, but if your kid is crying out for help and there is mental illness, that I think as a parent, then you can get them into programs hopefully to stop them from hurting themselves or hurting others.
Coni, since you do work with people who have been convicted of a crime, you said low-level crimes, but there is a balance, isn't there, between punishment and treatment for someone who gets into trouble this way?
Absolutely. I work with a wide range of crimes, low level with the diversion program, all the way to people that are being released from prison and reintegrating into the society. And I think, you know, it's really important to see the risk factors with them, to spend some time with their stories, and to really touch with them where this is coming from. But another big piece is finding out who their support system is. Who else are they going to confide in potentially in their life that could bring up, you know, the risk factors that we can say, all right, this person is really exceeding, you know, the safety levels right now, and we need to try to get this person some help.
And we know that a lot of teenagers these days don't have the advantage of a two-parent household and other support that might be necessary. Does the school need to be part of that support in a big way?
Oh, you know what I say all the time when I go out speaking, when they said, what are you going to do as a school? What are we going to do as a society? They're all of our kids. At home, at school, and if they can find that one person that they can confide in a school, and I used to train our staff members, whether it be people driving the buses, people working in the school kitchen, or people that were in the classrooms, if they could find and reach out to those kids that are crying out for help. As I stated, most kids do not come out of their mother's womb hating. What has happened from the time they were born to the time they get in a situation that they're willing to hurt themselves or others?
Last question. What has changed in these 17 years because of Columbine?
What I see happening, it's no longer different groups acting differently. And what I mean by that, prior to Columbine, the police had information that was not necessarily being shared with the school. The school had information that we were working on at school. Parents had information, but after Columbine, it was like a jigsaw puzzle. You had all these different pieces to the puzzle. After Columbine, we put the pieces together. And so police are sharing information with the schools. The judicial system are sharing information with the schools. And we're doing it, and it's all about the kids. And I think if we would have looked at it back then, there were some red flags, but the system that was in place now was not in place then.
I think for me, one of the things that I see frequently, I have clients that say, you know, this all started in high school. You know, that this feeling of shame, and, you know, 17 years ago, even saying the words mental illness had this shameful stigma. And I'm seeing quite a few people that are more comfortable coming forward and saying, you know, I have these things, and I think there might be something wrong. And there isn't the shame that is surrounding it. And the number of clients that say, you know, if this information, if this type of therapy were available in high schools, maybe I wouldn't be here today.
Thank you to both of you, Frank DeAngelis and Coni Sanders. We appreciate you adding to our conversation here tonight.
Thank you.